that there is a difference between processed experience and unprocessed experience. If a young child is made to sit in front of a television screen and watches it without an adult next to him processing it, they are merely visual images for that child. Whereas if an adult sits next to the child and says, "Oh my gosh, they're drinking water. Oh, oops, he dropped a cup," that visual image is converted to language and description, and the language and description is transformed into knowledge. And this is the reason why any experience, whatever its nature may be, if it's modulated by time and a family plan where you're engaging in other activities and play which are engaging and interesting for the child, and any screen time is converted into processed experiences, would go a long way in resolving the whole dilemma and tension around the negative impact of screen time on children, particularly young children. As we are emerging from the pandemic, I think it's important to recognize that while the virus may be losing its potency, and as more and more people are getting vaccinated and we may reach herd immunity, the fourth wave is likely to be a mental health wave, particularly as children return to school. Now let's look at children's lives during the pandemic and what did they lose. They lost routine, structure, predictability, educational opportunities, social spaces, peer interaction, and loss of play. And how do we account for this loss, particularly with those children who had special needs, those children who are preschoolers, those children who had pre-existing social and family vulnerabilities? So the whole framework of mental health and well-being in the whole return to school is not just about safety protocols and learning loss and learning gaps, but it's about what circumstances and with what mindset they are coming back to school. And this is the reason why we in NIMHANS have started a national initiative and an integrated resource for child protection, mental health and psychosocial care, supported by the Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, working in 4 verticals: mental health, child protection, education and policy and law, which means that non-professional service providers, teachers, childcare institution staff, helplines need to be capacitated about how to recognize red flags and respond to children's needs of mental health and well-being in the kind of spaces that children occupy and inhabit.
So sir, tell us about a few things that parents should do right now, a few tips which come to your mind immediately, because a lot of children are going through a literally traumatic experience from a time when they were 2 years at home, especially younger children who have never seen going to school, and now they're suddenly asked to go to school.
One of the issues about parenting is to really compensate for the loss of access to social spaces. Friends, learning is a social experience, and I'd like to introduce you to the philosophy of Rudolf Steiner, anthroposophy. If a child cannot go out into the world, how do you bring the world back into the family? And particularly for young children, even experiences of play, experiences of having a pot and chucking a couple of mustard and coriander seeds and nurturing it and seeing it germinate in 2 to 3 days is an anthroposophic stimulation for growth and psychosocial development. While there may be restriction of mobility, imagination can never be restricted. So the importance of a culture of conversations between parents and children, the importance of play, and also to model for children a response to how parents themselves react to uncertainty, because children are observing how parents respond, what their reaction to challenges and unpredictability is, and to provide that framework, an experience of comfort and a model of confident and courageous handling of the kind of predicament makes a child feels reassured and also acts as a role model for the child. So these are some of the new aspects of parenting that need to be internalized as we emerge from the pandemic.
And so, what about parents? Like even parents need probably mental health guidance in this era. So, are there any tips for them?
The kind of guidance that the adult world, the world of teachers, the world of parents require is basically to address how any human being deals with uncertainty, or more specifically an intolerance of uncertainty. And when we look at resilience and the life skills that are necessary to deal with resilience, the kind of work that needs to be done in public mental health approaches, not severe forms of disorders that are treated in mental health spaces, but in public health approaches or community-based approaches to healing and transformation. It is essentially to enhance your skills of resilience, your skills in conflict resolution, and to really adopt non-aggressive forms of conflict resolution, and to adopt a lifestyle that is embedded in the basic principles of resilience. Now, resilience is a superordinate construct. It means there is a challenge, there is a problem, and you adapt to it. So, good resilience is a positive adaptation to a challenge that you face in life. And these methods of adaptation are essentially embedded in life skills, decision making, problem solving, critical thinking, maintaining interpersonal relationships, a nuanced form of self-awareness, and effective forms of dealing with stress and dealing with emotions.
My last question, sir, a lot of times these days, parents are, to make the child occupied, they give them electronic tablets or, phones, and the child is, busy playing on that. And there's a lot of, and I look to you for guidance, there's a lot of research done that these screens are actually harming the cognitive skills of the child, the tangible skills of the child. So,
the digital world cannot be wished away. Online education in the digital world had come to exist even before the pandemic. There are two issues that need to be understood. Depending on the age of the child, the World Health Organization, associations of pediatrics, associations of child and adolescent mental health have recommended the amount of screen time that should be allowed to a preschooler, about 90 minutes to 2 hours a day, and that too not continuously, in 4 or 6 rounds of 15 to 20 minutes with gaps. For children who are a little older, let's say 8, 10, 12, perhaps 2 to 3 hours a day, and for adolescents somewhat more. Now here is the point that screen time, or what is now called as behavioral addiction or internet gaming disorders, has come to stay. So for an adolescent who is spending 14 hours gaming, and if there is a consensus and a democratic way in which screen time is agreed upon, so there is a family plan, there are other activities that the family does together, the amount of time that an adolescent may engage on the screen comes down from 16 to, let's say, 12 hours. They may still complain that even now 12 hours are being spent, but the point is that it's reduced by 4 hours, and one needs to look at those processes of reduction. The last thing I wanted to say in this connection is that there is a difference between processed experience and unprocessed experience. If a young child is made to sit in front of a television screen and watches it without an adult next to him processing it, they are merely visual images for that child. Whereas if an adult sits next to the child and says, "Oh my gosh, they're drinking water. Oh, oops, he dropped a cup," that visual image is converted to language and description, and the language and description is transformed into knowledge. And this is the reason why any experience, whatever its nature may be, if it's modulated by time and a family plan where you're engaging in other activities and play which are engaging and interesting for the child, and any screen time is converted into processed experiences, would go a long way in resolving the whole dilemma and tension around the negative impact of screen time on children, particularly young children.
Thank you so much.